So Didi, welcome to, where is this? Migori?
Yeah, Migori. Suna East.
Okay. It's how many months since the death of Baba? How many days? I think 1 month plus 10 days. 40, 50 days.
Still feels like yesterday.
What do you think of the legacy of Mzee, considering how abruptly he died?
First of all, I want to send my own personal condolences to the Odinga family, to Mama Ida and her children, to the brothers of Baba, to the sisters, to his clansmen, to the Luo community, to the nation, and to the world. Some of us came on stage when Raila Odinga had just lost the 2013 general election. So it was a very traumatic time because we had just voted in the 2010 constitution, and my next vote was to vote for Baba in 2013. And so when he lost and went to the Supreme Court, he was able to reveal certain things about our country that I really admired. He was the first person to begin to test the institutions that were created in post-2010 in a big way by this new constitution. So I think one of the things that the country is yet to realize that we've lost also one of those people who really tested the extent to which this new constitution could be trusted to take care of the business of the people, secure the peace, ensure that politics in our country is a contest that has clear winners, legal winners, and not just elections which are held in, as a show, as a mockery. And again, Raila Odinga was also the one person who demonstrated that you could actually boycott an election if you felt like it was not going to be conducted to the standards that were set for Kenya and for us as a people, the standards we set for ourselves in the new constitution. So in many ways, he was able to test this constitution, and for that, some of us are very grateful, very, very grateful to have seen him even go to the Supreme Court in person, carrying boxes of evidence, sitting before judges, listening to the arguments pro and the people who are essentially arguing against his win. So the loss of Baba, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, has been one of those sobering moments for the country, and there will be a lot to be said about the Right Honorable Raila Odinga for those people who interacted with him. And I think we were fortunate enough to be among the last group to support him in age, because after us is just our little sisters and brothers called Gen Zs. But we had some time with Raila Odinga, and from that,
with the Baba's demise, death, and very abrupt one at that, what do you think is the state of the party politics in Kenya, starting from ODM to the UDA, because he was a very key influence in the party politics in Kenya, and also the state of the leadership of the Luo community, post-Raila Odinga?
In the post-Raila Odinga environment, of course, the politics has to change. And the politics is changing very fast. Our politics in ODM is evolving to include or to now entail a real power struggle, which had been simmering within the party, but which Raila Odinga, as the master tactician, had somehow managed to really contain. He knew the ambitions of the people who surrounded him. He knew their strengths. He knew that some of them were very what do I say? They were very. The people who didn't want to wait. They were
very impatient.
They were very impatient. Thank you. That's the word I was waiting for. They were very impatient to wait, and despite all that, Raila Odinga knew how to temper those ambitions. So he somehow managed to leash everyone and let the movement, the Orange Democratic Movement, which is a mass movement, flow with certain speeds. There will be moments when the movement will, pace very fast. Then there will be moments when the movement will somehow move so slowly on certain issues. And these frustrations were important because then they were able to temper, the leaders who were emerging from ODM, and some of them were able to be nurtured for so long. And that's why at the end of towards the end of Raila Odinga, you could see that there were actually officers who were who could serve in government, and who, even though Raila Odinga lost the election, they have been able to serve very perfectly in the ministries that they were taken in. So ODM exists in many places. You need to know that. ODM exists in county assemblies. ODM exists in county executives, in academia, in parliament, and in the executive, the current executive. And I think sometimes what people forget is that ODM is a party both in government and in opposition, and we tend to play so much on the opposition aspects of the party, forgetting that there is a very key cog of the party. There are very senior officials of the party who are in government with a particular assignment from the Right Honorable Raila Odinga himself. And these are people he referred to as experts, that he donated these experts to government. And sometimes people don't pay attention to the language that Raila Odinga uses to define the people he places in certain positions. But in saying that he had given experts to the government, or he donated experts to the government, he partly meant that the people who were in government are people who had been trained. They'd been politically trained. They'd been prepared to be future leaders of the country. And so they are people who are very capable. And we've seen that in the manner in which many of them have succeeded in their roles. It also means that ODM is a crucible. And this is also another point people tend to lose. That since 2007, with maybe a brief gap in 2013-2017, ODM has been partly in government and partly in opposition. It has never been entirely in government and entirely in opposition. So there have been people who have interacted with government over and over again, and some come to government in 2013. The people we call rebels, they were still ODM. Others joined much later, at a time when people like Siesu Kuriatan joined the government of President Ruto Kenyatta. Those were still ODM people at the time that they were joining. So it doesn't matter whichever parties they ended up in government with, but at the end of the day, these are people who passed through ODM, who had interacted with Raila Odinga. It could be 5 years, it could be 2 years, but they had done a term in politics with the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. And for us in ODM who are observing these things, we could tell that a great number of ODM leaders will then emerge to be national leaders. And it has happened at this time. So we see, and even within those who are still in ODM, there's the willingness, there's the readiness to serve the nation in very senior roles. And that is also why, at this point in time, most ODM leaders are looking for careers in government, because they have done careers in opposition. They believe they can do careers in government and they can serve the nation. So that is one area. But the other thing I would want to speak to with respect to the state of ODM now is that sometimes there seems to be a tension between these different groups or different facets of ODM. There's sometimes the ODM in parliament and ODM in the executive, and there is also the ODM that is in both. They are essentially part of the executive by virtue of the roles they are playing. People like Samatandi, the MP for Alego Usonga, but they are also ODM in parliament because they are elected leaders on ODM. That also includes people like Mheshimiwa Junet Mohammed. They are senior members of the party, senior officials in parliament, but also people that the executive has to periodically consult because it is necessary for them in this broad-based arrangement that the minority is essentially part of the executive elsewhere. So that is another aspect of ODM. And then there's the ODM in regions. We should not forget that ODM can be geographically defined. It is a party that exists fully in certain regions, it exists partially in certain regions, and it does not exist at all in some regions. Whether by the fact that it has been defeated or it has not been allowed to exist in those regions by the local parties, or there has been defections from ODM, but there are regions that ODM dominate. Then there are regions that ODM is non-existent. So this geographical reality of the party is also very important as you look at the future of the party. It brings me to now this conflict within the party on the feeling that there are certain regions or certain voices from certain regions that are dominating the core of the party. And we saw yesterday the accusations on, for instance, the Somali group. But what I want to say on that is that ODM party is a party of regions. And counties, for instance, like Wajir or Wajir, where the governor is ODM, the county assembly is largely ODM, there's no way you will want them not to express themselves as boldly as any other county where ODM dominates. And so moving forward, people have to appreciate those dynamics. Then the last bit will be, should ODM go it alone? Should ODM form alliances? Should ODM support President Ruto? Should ODM, there's the group of ODM said to be allying with the former President Uhuru Kenyatta. So which is which? And for me, I want to be very clear. There are people who might be important for the party. You know, they give the party a feel-good effect, but at the end of the day, they cannot help the party advance because one, these are people who've done their terms. So somebody like Uhuru Kenyatta, however much ODM loves him, even if you want to shower him with all the praises, you can't vote for him anyway again. You know, so if you are going to claim that ODM supports Uhuru Kenyatta, it makes no sense because what are you supporting him for? What is it that is going to do as an individual? What he could do is to suggest another leader that ODM should support that leader because of the advice or the direction that, say, the Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta is giving. But the question then is, what is the relationship between that leader that, say, the group would want to support and ODM as a party? Now, this matter was alive when Raila Odinga was still alive. And of all the political parties in Kenya, the only party that Raila Odinga committed ODM to a working arrangement with was the UDA party and President William Samoei Ruto. These other parties, there is no working arrangement between ODM and Wiper between 2022 and 2027. There is no working arrangement between ODM and Jubilee between 2022 and 2027. And that is telling, because if Raila Odinga wanted to maintain that relationship between Wiper and all these other parties, he would have done it the way he openly did with UDA and with President Uhuru Kenyatta, President William Samoei Ruto. So, however much right now people are trying to make all the wild claims and all that, the fact of the matter is that ODM is in a political partnership with only one party in post-2022, and that is the UDA party, currently being led by President William Ruto. And then it also begs the question, why would Raila Odinga send his experts into government? Then they succeed in that government, and then these people now have to pull out again from that government to battle that government out of power. So what will they be battling?
Battling themselves.
They will be battling, they will be battling themselves. And that's why I'm saying people forget that there is ODM in the executive. And they're not just cheerleaders, because the other problem that has been in the past is even when ODM is in government, it was still viewed as an opposition party. Even when the Prime Minister Raila Odinga was a Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya, there were certain moments when people could wonder, why is it that he can't do certain things? Why is it that he can do certain things? Why is it that some officials in the same government could countermand him? But those are things we are not seeing with the ODM in this current President Ruto government. We've never had a situation where, for instance, a CS Mbadi comes out with a policy statement and is countermanded or opposed by another minister. But these were things which were very common under Grand Coalition government, where one minister will be saying this, the other minister will be contradicting, and mostly it was along the two-party line that existed at that time, ODM and PNU. So one thing we need to remember is that ODM has found also the easiest working arrangement with the UDA party and with President William Samoei Ruto. And when we say easiest, we can go back to history and see how ODM members have been treated in successive governments from 2007 up to this moment. We can go back in history and state how agreements that the Right Honorable Raila Odinga signed, even in post-2013 and post-2017, were implemented, and whether they were implemented with the same urgency, the same intensity that some of the Right Honorable Raila Odinga's ideas have been implemented by this government. The other thing we need to ask ourselves and we need to appreciate is that while Raila Odinga was alive, President Ruto allowed him to speak to the core of government, to the senior ranks of government in Naivasha, and he was able to articulate some of the things that he felt should be urgently sorted out. He spoke very passionately about aviation, our aviation infrastructure, and how Kenya is lagging behind. And he was speaking to senior government officials, the bureaucrats who are supposed to implement these government programs and policies. So it is like President Ruto wanted a situation where the government, the core of government, listens to the ideas of Raila Odinga, which were also the ideas contained in ODM as a party, which are also the ideas that ODM has pursued for so long. Because you remember that even the expansion of JKA is a project that has been in the pipes for so long. You remember the greenfield terminus and things like that. So when some of these things are now being discussed with the urgency they require, it is ODM, part of ODM manifesto that is being implemented courtesy of the agreement between President William Ruto and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. I also want to speak to the issue of how long should ODM stay in government or stay in this broad-based government. It will make no sense. And this is why the intention, even though nobody spoke about it loudly, the intention of ODM was to go with President William Samoei Ruto, the long haul. Because how do you leave your ministers in government up to 2027, and then these same ministers, because ODM, I'm sure, will expect that all the people who went to government to come back to the party and campaign for the candidate of the party, right? So you'll expect Governor Joe to come back, abandon the president that they have served for almost 3 years to campaign for a different candidate. You expect the same of Pio Wandai, of Mheshimiwa John Mbadi and those other guys. That is not going to work. That is not how politics works. And I agree with what Dr. Buru is saying now. that ODM members and supporters need to decide on how they are approaching 2027 elections by mid-2026. So that the party is very clear, this is the candidate we are supporting, these are the policies we've implemented, this is the vision we are still carrying forward, these are the pending issues. You get it? So by mid this year, mid next year is a perfect time for the party to recalibrate, relook at the arrangement with President Ruto, not on the question of government, but with regard to the 2027 elections, which is a reality. And an election is not a government. An election is a contest. So DEM needs to, by this year, decide whether they are going to the election with President William Ruto, or if the core of ODM that says they don't want to go into election with President Ruto, they need to convince those of us who are hesitant that the Ruto path is the best path for the party, so that party officials and party leaders and party politicians can then relook at power from 2032. So for me, these things must be decided early enough. Now, there is also the question whether ODM should go it alone. Campaigns are not just presidential campaigns, especially, you and I know, Robert, they're not just going on podiums and speaking to the people and saying that, we'll offer Baba Care, we'll give 6,000. There is also the entire question of how do we finance the campaign itself, how do we finance the election day, how many people do we touch with this message, and how do we get to all these places. This issue of campaign financing is very critical to the party, and the party has to ask itself, do we have the resources to mount a presidential election against an incumbent who will, in all indications, will arrive in 2027 with a very solid development agenda already achieved, a manifesto already implemented, a president who is fairly very popular in his own backyards, the places that voted for it. So if ODM feels confident enough that they can, on their own, have a presidential candidate, have a deputy presidential candidate, and contest the elections in 2027 on their own, then that decision also has to be made by mid next year to allow the party and those characters who wants to do that to also prepare for 2027. But to give the party the impression that these things don't matter, that these questions don't matter. And there is also the recent history of ODM. We were in a political partnership with the Jubilee Party just the other day when it was headed by Uhuru Kenyatta as the party leader. Where did we end with that? Because ODM partnership with other political parties doesn't start with the partnership with UDA. No. ODM was in partnership with Jubilee from 2018 to 2022. How did that partnership go? What did that partnership achieve? You get it? So these are questions that ODM has to ask itself. And then why didn't the party go it alone, for instance? Why have we been consistently in coalitions? So even right now, we need to decide whether we are going to the election with the UDA party as the major co-partner party and the Kenya Kwanza coalition, or we are going into an election with whatever they call it, united opposition, and with this Uhuru faction. These are decisions that have to be made by mid next year. The last thing I would also want to talk about is the state of ODM in areas that ODM dominates. Remember we said that ODM also has a geographical reality. So what is the state of the internal state of the party in areas that it dominates? What is the level of preparedness, for instance, to conduct credible nominations, to bring good leaders to ensure that good leaders emerge from the people, to retain those leaders within ODM who have performed well in their roles, and lastly, to have on the ballot politicians who can win numbers for the party, because it will not make sense to have angels who are going to lose to devils. It will not make sense to have a party that everybody is a bishop that is then going to lose to, whatever machinations usually happen on election day. So then ODM must ask itself at this point in time, why have we not won the presidency? That question is urgent. Why did we not win in 2022? How did we improve from 2013 elections? What did we add to our preparedness from 2013 to 2017, 2017 to 2022? And what is it that stayed the same and costed us these victories? So these are things that ODM has to soul search and ask itself. Another thing is, who is a member of ODM today? Who does ODM attract? What are the issues that ODM is telling the people it's still pursuing? Because nowadays when you listen to ODM, sometimes it is just the constant bickering by ODM leaders, people speaking at each other and things like that. The question is, there are certain core issues that ODM was pursuing. In 2013, ODM was pursuing this idea of a new constitution. They achieved it. Between 2013 and 2017, ODM has been pursuing certain constitutional amendments. We need to know in 2027 which of these amendments in post-2010 that the party has achieved. Have we done well in the question of gender, the 2/3 gender rule, for instance? Have we done well in the question of strengthening devolution, for instance? Have we done well in gender mainstreaming? Have we done well in the question of human rights? And what does human rights mean to us today? There is also the urgent question of economic rights today, because we've also realized that even as we were fighting for human rights and all these other things, it is also in most ODM-dominated areas that somehow remain behind. If you travel in most of these constituencies in Luo Nyanza, the state of basic infrastructure is very bad. So on that, and we see progress in other areas, we see physical progress in other areas, and we need to demand more on that. So how is it that the party, which has been fighting to achieve all these rights, is also the party which dominates places that are still very poor infrastructurally, and still very poor in terms of getting government opportunities and resources, including human resource? Because if you look at the country right now, it's still by and large dominated by the thinking that formed power in 2022. So we need to look as a party, to what extent are we even in government? To what extent are we in government? Because this constant bickering by ODM leaders does not tell the ODM supporter where the party is in relation to being in government, and to what extent party officials in government hold the levers of power to be able to implement government policy, both nationally but also in the so-called strongholds of ODM as a party. So we need to relook into that. The question of economic rights is today very urgent and very important for an ODM supporter who still comes from towns where power goes off anyhowly, who still comes from areas where the kilometers of their roads, on Maram roads, on earth roads, far outweigh those on tarmac. So these are, and where piped water is still a dream. These are things that have been achieved in other parts of the country. These are good things, and these are things we need to also ensure that they are achieved in our part of the country, so that the entire country develops. because if people continue just developing one part of the country, the part that is developed will carry the burden of the parts that are not developed, and that in itself creates disunity among the people. And some people feel that they are doing the heavy lifting, while in reality, it is the national budget that is skewed to develop certain areas and abandon certain areas. So those are things that ODM has to be keen about. What is the ODM record on pursuing universal health care, eradicating poverty? These are things that ODM used to be passionate about. Public finance management, the question of the issue of corruption. These are things that ODM used to be passionate about. And we need to go back to the ODM manifesto. What did we want to achieve in 2022? What was, for instance, ODM or Azimio plan for jobs? What was Azimio plan for education and higher education and all these things? And are they being achieved? What was ODM plan for housing? Is it being achieved? And things like that. Because, as I've told you, because ODM exists in government and because Raila Odinga, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, was actively advising this government, both publicly but in many, many instances privately, we need to know what the ODM manifesto has achieved, even in areas where people think that the implementation is largely by ministers or CSSs who are UDA or were UDA before the broad-based government was formed. ODM has to begin co-owning the achievements that President Ruto is bringing to the country. Otherwise, we will end up being the party that was in government when these great things were happening and never benefited from these achievements. While on the other hand, if you learned anything with 2017-2022, it could also be that a party carries the baggage of a regime. So ODM went to an election where people did not see that the achievements that Uhuru made could be shared with ODM. ODM went into that election carrying the baggage of the regime without taking credit for the many things that the regime achieved between 2018 and 2022. So ODM has to plan itself and situate itself either in government or in opposition. But we can't go to 2027 with this kusimama combo, where your one leg is here and the other leg is here.
Yeah, but also we cannot discuss ODM without discussing the leadership of the party and also the leadership of the community, which is assumed that Raila led, which is the Luo community. So what do you think of the leadership of the party and also the leadership of the community?
On the leadership of the party leader is Dr. Buro Dinga, and Dr. Dinga was placed on leadership by the organs of the party. There's this impression that he was placed there by individuals, but he was placed at the helm of the party by an organ of the party. This organ had the requisite quorum. There are minutes to prove that these meetings happened. There are minutes to prove that he was seconded and he was supported. There are minutes to prove that while this happened, there was no contestation on his ascension to the office of the party leader. So Dr. Buro Dinga is the party leader of ODM and retains all the rights and privileges that come with the party leader of ODM, and is responsible for the guiding the party, just the way the Right Honorable Raila Odinga guided the party. It is him who is now in charge, and it is him who has to guide the party going forward until another election is held or another process is held that then gives the party another party leader.
Yeah. So, but the leadership of the community?
On the leadership of the Luo community, up to now, has always revolved around the leadership of ODM as a party. So politically, Dr. Buro again is ideally the ultimate voice, the ultimate political voice of the Luo community at this point in time. and the direction that he's going to want the community to take is going to be, by and large, the direction that the community will take with regard to 2027. And I think that he's seen that as the party leader of ODM, he needs to bring everybody on board. He appreciates that there are people who in the past may not have been treated right in the party. He's always given an olive branch to those, like, for instance, the Honorable Babu Owino, who's been rebelling because of what he sees as mistreatment within the party. He's been open in talks with such leaders. Even the people who are opposing him, is still in talks with them, is still accommodative to them. And I think that is the wisdom that the party organs, so to be able to find somebody who is able to manage all these ambitions within the party. So again, within the Luo community, there's right now, I see people thinking that there is confusion within the Luo community, but I think there is none. I think Luo people realize where we are, the things we aspire to achieve as a people, where we want our community to be, how we want our community to relate with the rest of the country. I've always said that we do not seek to dominate any group. You don't hear this from any of our leaders. We do not seek to even dominate the government. That's why whenever Luos get opportunities, it is shared. So because of that, there is no fear at all within the Luo community as to the unity of the community, but also the political direction that the community will take. I'll summarize it this way. The community knows who to vote for. They also know who not to vote for. Yeah.
So the ODM constitution is very clear on the role of the political, or on the role of the leader, which is basically to be the face of the symbol and the chief representative of the party. But also you have the conflict of, messaging coming from different quarters, whether from the party chair or the deputy party leaders and the secretary general, on what direction the party must take. What do you think should be done to ensure that we have one center of power in ODM and not a situation where the party is pulling from different angles towards the vision?
I think you need to appreciate that this idea that the party pulls in different directions has always been part of ODM from the start. There has never been a point in the life of the party when there were no disgruntled elements within the party on the direction of the party. What has changed now is these disgruntled elements now have the audacity to even question the leadership of the party leader. It never happened in the past that when the Right Honorable Raila Odinga took a position which the ODM constitution mandates him to take, sometimes on behalf of the party, that the disgruntled group within the party will then question the very capability of the party leader to shepherd the party. So that is one of the things that has happened right now, which is very sad, because then that slippery path means that ODM cannot act in consensus, and where the party leader, where there is no consensus in ODM, the practice has been the party leader takes a position and everybody falls behind the party leader's position. The problem in ODM is that there are people in ODM without positions, who do not even sit in these organs of the party, who for a very long time downplayed the relevance of these organs of the party, whether because they were closer to the party leader or related to the party leader or purported to be speaking on behalf of the party leader, who then find that the rule by organs of the party is very exclusionary. So there have been attempts by this group of people to also create their own centers of power outside the organs of the party. And this has largely been thwarted because if you see the kind of lamentations right now, you can tell that the core of the party is very intact. Then there are also people who have positions in the party, but who sometimes mistake their own personal positions as the positions of the party. This group are the ones who delude themselves that they, for instance, can countermand at the direction that the current party leader is giving or issuing, because they also have some mid or top tier positions within the party. So these two groups of people under Raila Odinga, they were conveniently contained, but some want to assume that, for instance, the powers that the Honorable Odinga had are weakened under the new party leader, which I think they are very mistaken.
So you think the party leader is still very strong and in control of the party?
The party leader is very strong, and it is not just the party leader, but ODM is a very solid institution. So the institutions of ODM, the committees of the party, the caucuses of the party will be able to overcome these delusions by some officials of the party. That for sure I know.
So, lastly, what do you think should be the position of the party on the current state of governance in the country? Where should ODM stand?
I think ODM should be very proud of its decision to work with the current president, because one, it saved our country from becoming another failed state, another banana republic. And this was something that the Right Honorable Raila Odinga even commented about, that he had no regrets at all by his decision to work with the current government. People always assume that it cannot happen to your country until it happens. We saw this with Tanzania. So it's very easy to destroy your country by just thinking this is a mere agitation. Agitations can spiral into other things. So ODM should be very proud that it participated in stabilizing the Republic of Kenya, and that right now we have a country that is functional, we have a country that is developing, we have a country that is now solely focused on achieving the goods for the people. The other thing that ODM should be very proud of is the people that it brought to government have not tainted the government with mediocrity. They have not tainted the government with incompetence. They have not tainted the government with the corruption and all these other things. So you do not hear, for instance, that somebody is claiming that this minister who was seconded to government by ODM is engaged in this grand malfeasance, and that is very important. We also see the reforms that are happening in the financial sector, the reforms that are happening in the energy sector, and the general trajectory of the country at this point in time. There are things we can say that the government is achieving, the government is focused in the right place, infrastructurally especially, because the major responsibility of government is to deliver public goods. People forget this. The major responsibility of government is to deliver public goods to the people, public services to the people. And we can quantify what has been achieved under this regime and what has been achieved, the pace of development under previous regimes, and we can say that Kenya is on the right direction. Is it as everything we want been achieved? No. But is something being done correctly? The party can say a bold yes. So this relationship between ODM and UDA is a very fruitful relationship. It's beneficial to the country, and it's going to achieve certain goods to the people. And ODM needs to co-own these achievements. President Ruto is going for re-election, so is going to be around up to 32. But ODM needs to prepare itself to be able to stay in government and stay in power for a very long time, so that some of these plans that are being mooted right now, that the party will help to see them through and through. Lastly, I just want to urge ODM leaders to always not forget that they are not the last people to be leaders in ODM. You've become a governor. You're not the last governor to be the governor of ODM in your county. You should also be hoping that you leave, when you exit that seat, that the person coming next is still an ODM member, implementing a certain agenda that your own government is pursuing. The same goes to members of parliament and members of county assemblies and all these other people. We should always want a party that is evolving, a party that is giving birth to new energy, new passions, and new ideas. But we can also be a party that disregards the historicals who stood with the party, the battle-hardened generals who guided the party. And where we differ, where there is a point of departure between these two groups of people, the strength of Raila Odinga lay in being able to moderate these two forces. And this is why ODM is a mass movement, a strong movement. This is why ODM is an enduring movement.
Thank you so much. Asante sana. This is the first year we're going to finish without Raila Amolo Odinga being present. And I hope that it's going to be a new, fresh year next year with good things for the party supporters and Raila's supporters. Asante sana.